Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio Evening. It is 9:30 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, Monday night, September 24th. I'm glad to be here. I haven't been on for a while and missed a lot of my shows. And just been a lot going on. Been extremely busy and also ended up kind of sick with a really bad flu and a cold. And just been extremely busy as well and working full time. And yeah, it hasn't been working out for my shows. And so sorry about that for everybody that keeps tuning in and I'm not here. Yeah, I appreciate everybody, who's listened to the shows over the years. I did 2 years pretty much of Blog Talk shows there, over 900 shows, or right around 900 and something shows over the last 2 years. And I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to listen to what I had to say and what I have to say about child abuse prevention and child abuse and how, the horrors of child abuse and my own story. And I have people who listen regularly and friends and whatnot, and other people who tune in that I don't know. So I appreciate you taking the time. The show is not for younger children. I always post a discretionary warning. The show is for children, adults, 18 and older. It's not for younger children. This is a serious topic, and I really don't sugarcoat it. I don't minimize it. I just tell it like it is, because child abuse is a serious issue that's killing children. And if it's not killing them, it's putting them in danger of losing their lives in the hospital from abuse-related injuries, and it's just absolutely horrific. It's really tragic. It's ruining children's lives all over this country, Canada, as well as the United States, and all over the world. So I don't mind speaking out against it. I'll sort of go into a little bit about what got me started on this whole thing and how it all came about. It was kind of interesting how it all happened. I had I didn't start out 20 years ago thinking, I'll have a blog talk show and I'll talk about child abuse prevention or, share my story and stuff. This all happened right after 2005. So I'll go into a little bit about that. And for anybody who's listening who hasn't gone back and listened to my original beginning shows, I started Blog Talk Radio in 2009. November, I think, of 2009. And before that, I had been working internationally with groups around the world, specifically a couple of groups specifically, to promote positive change for women's rights and children's rights around the world. And that was great. I really enjoyed doing it. But I thought, what about the people in our own countries? What about the people in me coming from an abusive home and being abused myself? I sit here and I think, wow, what about our own country, our own continent? There's people in the United States. I won't even drag Mexico into this, but, the United States and Canada, we have our own set of problems here. And I really wanted to talk about that as well. And that all started to happen right around 2009. But, it's just something that sits heavy on my heart, and it's probably because I was abused. I wouldn't doubt that for 1 second. Probably would bother me anyway. I'm just that type of a person. I just don't like to see people being hurt, and especially children, unnecessarily. This is just absolutely ridiculous what people are doing to children and to other people, to loved ones and other family members, and it just shouldn't be happening, and it's like, why are we tolerating this, and why is humanity still tolerating this, and why is it okay? People seem to be getting away, and they always have, with abusing children. And so that's why I want to talk a little bit about why I started this show, why I started talking about child abuse prevention, and why I started speaking out publicly. Because I wasn't always doing this. I started writing a blog in 2009, around October 2009, and it all sort of just fell in place. 2005, I actually made a decision in 2005 when I hit a really low point in my life where I wouldn't say clinical depression, but I was really, could have been clinical depression. I don't know. I wasn't diagnosed by a doctor, but I was very depressed. I'd always been depressed. I always had been contemplating my suicides. I never really attempted them. Always in the back of my mind that I could end this pain that I was in, this severe pain from my childhood and from my youth, not getting what I needed from my parents, not getting what I needed to get a good start in life, really being jaded at a very young age, witnessing too much violence and being put through too much violence, put through too much torture and pain and sorrow, watching my family suffer, and suffering myself, but not only just that, but just watching my family members suffer was extremely hard on me as a child. And knowing that it was all, it just didn't seem to be necessary. You know, my friends all, well, I had some friends who were abused too, but I had 2 or 3 friends that I hung around with that had these normal family lives, and these people, you know, were just normal, you know. They didn't abuse each other, they didn't abuse their children, and I saw that, and I was like, wow, that's so different than what I'm going through and what some of my friends are going through. So I recognized, you know, that there was a problem in my home, and I knew there was a problem. Abuse is a serious issue, and whether it's physical, you know, emotional, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, it doesn't matter. It's all very, very damaging, very harmful, and it all takes its toll on a person, right? So I watched my mother, you know, suffer through this, and then she was my main abuser, so it's not like I could sit here and say, oh, she was an angel, but you know, I watched her be every single day by my dad. It wasn't physical death, but it was a mental, psychological, spiritual death that she went through, and she came from underneath, you know, the 8 ball, being abused as a child herself, and then went into this abusive marriage with my dad. So that's pretty much what I had talked about over the period of 2 years here on Blog Talk Radio, with one child abuse survivor to another. That's my story and my healing journey. But you know, it's just, it jaded me as a young child to see all that and to see the violence between my brothers, my dad, my brothers, and what they were doing, illegal activities and whatnot outside the home. Just the violence, you know, so much violence. And so I grew up witnessing this stuff, and so it jaded me. I mean, it would have an effect on a child, and it does. You know, and it's hard to, you know, think of any child having to go through that, but yet whole society. You know, it just depends on where you're born and who you're growing up with. You know, you're going to experience some of that, and that's really unfortunate. It's not a good way to grow up. You know, I knew that, and I knew that I was in a lot of pain. So 2005, I was still contemplating suicide. I was hit a really low point, and then something just within me just said, you know, I'm going to get help. Like, I'm going to win this battle. I'm going to stay alive, and I made a decision that I would never, ever contemplate my suicide again, and I would never, ever go through with it, and I would get help, right? So that was 2005, and over the course of a couple of years, I was busy, didn't work on my own self-healing so much, but was busy getting involved with groups who were helping to promote women's and children's rights around the world, especially in Afghanistan and different places like that, where there are none. No rights for women and no rights for children. So that was really important to me. And then I decided to get involved domestically, like within, you know, the United States and Canada, and tried to look for groups that I could volunteer with. So that's what I did. And it was very helpful. And I realized, you know, that I had a lot of work to do myself, because I had been studying, looking through a lot of material, and really thinking about the issues and stuff. And I started to actually realize that I could speak out. I could raise my voice. I don't have to stay silent about what happened in my family. And, you know, I knew the consequences, you know, that would occur from me coming out publicly would probably drive a wedge in between me and the remaining family members that I have from, you know, my immediate family, my sister and brother and my dad and other family members. But I didn't care. I was like, you know what, I don't care. They weren't there really for me then, and they're not there for me now, and they can't be. You know, it's not like our family was never supportive towards each other. I grew up in a hugely abusive family. Everybody was just doing their own thing, not coming together as a unit. So we never ever did that, and so we're not close, right? We're not like close siblings where, you know, one of us would try to help the other one, sort of thing. Even though my oldest brother, did try to help my younger brothers before they killed themselves, as much as he could, but they ended up killing themselves anyway. So he's jaded because he tried all he could to do what he could to help his 2 younger brothers, and they ended up killing themselves. And so he's jaded. He just thinks that life is just horrible and just what it is, and too bad, and just deal with it. You know, they want to face the reality of the fact that we were all mistreated. We all grew up in this hellhole, right? And he knows it. Like, we've talked about it, but we're not close because we share this hell of a past together that was horrible. It was like a nightmare, you know. And so we don't sit around and talk about, the good times in the family. Oh, you remember when we did this and when we did that? because we didn't do anything together as a family. You know, we didn't even eat together in the same room. It was dangerous. It was violent. And so we rarely ate together as a family. Generally ate in different, like, you know, whenever. Like my mom would just have supper sitting there and feed everybody as they came around. If you wanted supper, you had to be there. Otherwise, you just weren't going to get any. And generally, we didn't sit around the table together because my dad and my mom were so violent towards each other and so violent towards the children that, you know, we didn't sit around the table as much as possible. So it was not a close-knit family. We didn't sit around on, you know, the weekends and plan something as a family. We never did anything as a family like a normal family unit might do with 7 siblings and 2 adult parents, 9 people total. There just wasn't any of that going on. It was just, especially by the time I came around, there was absolutely none of that going on. After I was born, I was the last child born in the home. So I knew there'd be consequences, you know, coming out, going public with my story and going public with the blog. I actually started writing a blog in October 2009, a public-facing blog. I wanted people to see it, and really because it was my inner self crying out for somebody to see what happened to me as a child and what happened to my family, and it was more really what happened to me. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to go to my grave with this information and nobody know what these people did to me. I mean, really, I have to be honest. I mean, that's exactly why I wrote it. But it wasn't a pointing fingers and they did this and they did that. It's a story. It's a story. So, you know, like written from my eyes as a young person. And so I got a lot of followers following that blog, and people were really interested in it. And I had a writer and an author who was a friend of mine who thought that it should be published. And you know, I didn't really want the money. Donated the money from the sales of this book that was the blog called A Life of Death, The Redemption. I just donated the money to a certain not-for-profit organization because I didn't want the money from it. You know, and it's like blood money, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's my pain and torture and suffering and my family's destruction in there, and it's not something I really wanted to make money off of. Money's not that important anyway, obviously, because I don't have any. So I just wanted people to know the truth about child abuse and what a child goes through being abused and what can happen when children slip through the cracks, you know. It's a horrible situation for a lot of people out there, and I actually, you know, I mean, I survived, you know, and it's like, okay, so many children won't. They won't make it past their 4th birthday, you know. They won't make it past their 3rd month. They won't make it past their 6th month, you know, because their 6 months of being alive, because somebody will kill them. Somebody will maim them and torture them and kill them, right? I mean, I survived. And, you know, but the mental torture, what it did to my family is just pretty evident. 2 of my brothers killed him. One of my brothers died, he was murdered, so that doesn't count. Who knows what would have happened to him if he would have lived long enough, but he was murdered at the age of 19. And so he didn't get a chance. And another one of my brothers is in denial, pretty much. He just hates the world and hates life and hates anything that's good. He thinks evil is the best thing, and he's lost. He's like a lost soul. You know, he hates to see goodness in the world because he's wounded, but he won't admit it. And my sister is in denial. She's split. She's one of those people who's got a split personality. Like she's what do you call that? Can't remember the name of it now. But anyway, she split off. And so she doesn't remember anything. I really will admit that. She doesn't admit anything. She doesn't remember anything. But yet, when you talk to her about certain things, she has a memory of it. She just doesn't want to remember anything. Well, who can blame her? It was a horrible situation. I hung on to every single memory because it was the only way I could stay sane, was to keep it all there. You know what I mean? Because that's to protect my mother. And even though she was my main abuser, I felt that I should try to protect her. I didn't like to see what my dad was doing to her. And I knew what he was doing to her, and I didn't like it. I didn't think it was right. And my brothers, some of them didn't either, but they would try to protect her too. But the thing is like a young child of 6, 7, 8, 9 years old shouldn't have to be worried about protecting their mother, and I was. But my mother was my main abuser. So it's probably why There's a whole lot of psychological problems there because of that kind of stuff, right? Seriously messed up issue. But, I knew that would be, it would cause a wedge in between the siblings that I have left alive and myself by coming out publicly with the story, but I really didn't care because I wanted the truth to be told. And so I got the books published. I just self-published and had that blog going, and then I started talking on Blog Talk Radio after I heard this Blog Talk Radio show, Hope for Healing. Gail Crabtree, she had a great, I think, I'm not even sure doing it, but she had a great Blog Talk show here. I happened to just be tuning into it one night and thought, hey, I could start my own show. And so, I started talking publicly about my story and about, child abuse prevention and whatnot in 2009, of November 2009. So that's why I did it. It was, it's not only for me, but also because I knew so many children who were abused as a child. I actually knew lots of kids growing up who were abused, sexually abused in their homes, physically abused, emotionally, psychologically abused, kids that were thrown out of their homes, on the street, kids who were in trouble with the law at a young age. I mean, I hung around with kids that were going through the same types of things I was because I couldn't fit in with the other groups because I was a misfit. I was an outcast, like within my own social circles through junior high and high school and whatnot. So generally I tend to hang out with kids that are going through what you're going through because you can relate, And so I hung out with all the kids who were doing drugs and who were partying and who were having a hard time at home, mainly. There was a few kids that I hung out with that were my best friends really for years that had normal families, normal parents who loved them and cared about them. And it's not like they didn't have their own set of, every family's got troubles and some problems. There's always something to be worked out, but, their parents didn't abuse them, right? And they took care of them really quite well. And so I saw this normality, but in the meantime, I was also hanging around with kids who were having the same kind of problems I was and getting into a lot of trouble and that kind of thing. And I knew, that there were so many people out there who were suffering. I knew this, It wasn't just me. I was no woe is me. It's only me. I'm the only one who's ever been abused, Like I could see the big picture of so many people, in the world are affected by this. And I thought, yeah, I can speak out publicly. I mean, really, we all do. We all need to, because this way it doesn't get shoved under the carpet. We need to keep talking about this, child abuse prevention and whatnot. There's great work being done by a lot of great groups out there, and just, get on board with anybody and support them. Like Scan here on Blog Talk Radio, Bill Murray and team, crew. He's got a whole team of advocates and different people who are serving child abuse, different types of child abuse. Some similar, some different, and they're all speaking out against child abuse and really trying to raise awareness, and that's here on Blog Talk Radio. Scan Bill Murray's Stop Child Abuse Now. That's a great program to tune into. I can't tune in anymore because my schedule doesn't allow it. It's unfortunate, but I used to like to tune in. I'd be on the show once in a while. It's a great show. But I thought, as long as we're doing something to make some noise so that this doesn't get pushed under the carpet, because this is, in where I live in my city, you don't see anything about child abuse prevention. The only thing that you do see that's out publicly, like on, bus walls, like the interior of the bus on the top, or, billboards or anything like that, where you might see some public information posted, is homes for children who have been abused already. Well, that's real nice. Yeah, that's real nice. Let's just fix up a bunch of homes so we can help all these kids who have been abused. Why not? Let's just stop child abuse. To me, that's great. We need those, because there's always going to be some crazy, insane person out there who's going to abuse a child. But the thing is do some prevention stuff, you know what I mean? Like, only rarely do you ever see anything about prevention. Once in a while. It's not very often. In the meantime, how many kids, hundreds and hundreds of kids, are being abused? The system just can't handle it. They only look into so many claims, so many of those phone calls. They only look into them a certain percentage for certain reasons. And how many of those kids slip through the cracks like I did? So many will. And this bothers me. It's like there's no justice for these children. And then they're going to grow up and they're going to have to deal with this garbage. And some may go on to abuse their own children, some may not. But this, not every child who's ever been abused will abuse their own children. Some will actually go the opposite way because they don't want their children to suffer as they did. But there will be some who will. pass it on, pass the cycle on. Both my parents did that. And it's unfortunate because these kids, there's no person on this planet, whether you're an adult or a child, has the right to abuse another child. It's absolutely illegal. And why are people doing it and getting away with it? Well, because nobody cares. It's too big of a problem. Oh, well, not my problem, And it's all of it secretly, Some of it's done out in the open, but some of it's done, if not almost all of it's done behind closed doors. So you got to watch out for those signs and those symptoms, of child abuse. All the different physical signs that may be evident, the emotional signs, children acting out, children, withdrawing, all of a sudden children shying away from certain people. If a child comes to you and tells you they've been abused, you take that very, very seriously. It's very rare, sadly enough, that children will come out and say they've been abused, or that they are being abused, right? It's a serious issue. And the thing is that 1 out of 3 to 4 girls, say, even if we say 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 6 to 7 boys, let's say 7 boys, will be sexually abused under the age of 18 in some way. So whether that's, whether that's molestation or exploitation or actual rape or sexual abuse somehow sexually under the age of 18. 1 out of 4 girls and 1 out of 7 boys. People say, I don't think people even understand that that's true. But the issue is that's true. But how many people are going to come forward and say, I've been sexually abused, I was sexually abused as a child? That's why I do what I do. Because I want people to realize that you don't have to, if you're a survivor, if you want to carry that by yourself your whole life, well, that's your choice to make, because we all have to make a choice. We all have to be okay and comfortable with the decisions that we make. So if a person's not comfortable coming out and saying, I was sexually abused as a child, because it just would do more damage than good to say anything, then it's better not to say anything. You have to know yourself what you can tolerate, what you can handle. For me, I thought, no, I'm going to come out and I'm going to talk about this, because I want other people to know that, just in case they're thinking, I need to tell somebody, but how do I tell somebody? Who do I tell? How can I tell somebody that I was abused in some way as a child? So many people will keep this a secret and will die inside, like I did, for so many years, because there was nowhere. Who could they tell? And who even cares? But I realized that a lot of people care. I met a lot of awesome people over this last few years doing this and coming out and coming forward with my story, telling people what happened to me as a child. I met a lot of people who do care, and they do care about other people. And it was never going to happen in my family. My family doesn't care. Well, of course not, because they were abused too. They're screwed up. Their minds are not right. They obviously think it's okay. There's people in my family think it's okay to abuse a child. My sister thinks it's perfectly fine what my dad did to my mother. She would never say what he did was wrong. I mean, I'm almost 50. I called her on it many times over the years. He's saying, what Dad did was wrong. I mean, sure, Mom was my main abuser. She was a violent, vicious woman who nearly killed me a couple of times. But the thing is we still have to admit truth is truth. What Dad did to her was wrong. Abusing her in every way. And she would never admit to it, because she didn't want to admit to any of the abuse. See, she just wanted to pretend that we all just lived in this nice, happy family. Everything was great. That's the only way she can cope, is to just not deal with it, to not even acknowledge it. So I'm not going to get any comfort and support there after telling her that one of our brothers, sexually assaulted and sexually used me. See, there's no comfort there. There's no, oh my God, or even denial, like, oh, I don't believe you or anything. There's just nothing. She can't be that person. She can't be that comfort. Many times people growing up in abusive homes aren't going to get the response they need from these people who survived the abuse with them, or at another time in the family's history, or are still alive. Maybe they weren't abused. Maybe that one child was abused, and so they still don't want to admit it, because that's the shame of the family. And so many times people, like, there was 2 of us that were really picked on in my family. That was me and my brother, the one that sexually used me, him, and he was 13 years older than me. We didn't really hang out together, you know what I mean? But he was picked on by my dad. My dad used to abuse him horribly, and that's why my bro got busted and got arrested for child abuse. Both my parents were busted and brought up on child abuse charges. And me, there was two of us that my parents really focused their violence towards, and the other siblings were just left off to do their own thing, sort of neglected, abused, and mostly I wouldn't say physically, but some of them were, but more psychologically and emotionally. It's just so they don't have the same anger issues that I do, or I don't know about my brother. He killed himself, so I never talked to him really. I didn't want to talk to him. He's the one that hurt me and sexually abused me as a child, and he killed himself so many years later. But the thing is like, I'm not going to get anything I need from my abuser family. So it's like I had to look outside because I was keeping all this in. And in 2005, that's what I was saying. In 2005, I mean, I was down to one of my lowest points I've ever been, which is pretty bad. And I mean, because I had been planning my suicides my whole life, like in my 20s, 30s, all the way up until I hit about 42. And then in 2005, I thought, what am I doing? Am I going to spend my life doing this? This is ridiculous. I need to get help. I need to want to live. I need to fight to live. I need to not allow this to destroy me. So that was my big message was, I thought I need to talk about this so other people will know, not to let this stuff destroy them. It's so incredibly serious. And a lot of the world, the world just goes by. I sit here, I think about that a lot because I'm a survivor, right? And I just think, well, yeah, the world just goes by, passes us by. It's like we're stuck in some sort of limbo, We can never, ever connect, because of this abuse. And we'll always have a mark, Like just because I've come out and gone public with my story and written books and stuff, it doesn't, and gone through my healing journey and actually made really good progress, which is great, doesn't mean that I'm not marked for life. Because I can never have a conversation with somebody saying, when somebody says, oh yeah, when I was young, my family used to go camping and we used to have so much fun and we'd do this and we'd do that and Mom would buy me this. That's where the line is drawn. If I start talking about my family and say, oh yeah, well, my family, the only thing I can say is, well, we never did anything like that together as a family. Because if I start going into the story, then nobody wants to hear it. It's like, oh brother, nobody wants to hear about my tales of woe about being abused as a child. So, and because it's discomfort, it makes them uncomfortable. I find that most people out in the world who haven't been abused, if you talk to them about abuse, they're very uncomfortable with it. It's a very uncomfortable subject. It's comfortable for me because I've lived it my whole life. So I know what it's like, to be on the street, 16 years old, doing drugs, wanting to die, didn't care if I lived or died, for so many years. And hated life, hated God, hated everything. Just hated the whole entire, I hated my skin, I hated my very existence. I loved my friends. I had some really good friends, awesome friends, because they were there for me. But it took me a long, hard road to today, and I thought, I really just wanted to speak out on behalf of other people who cannot speak out or who feel that they can't speak out. Whatever you do, get help. Do not allow yourself to be destroyed by this. Reach out to somebody, anybody, even one of those, telephone, hotlines where you call and you just talk to somebody on the phone, suicide crisis line or crisis line. You make the decision. You have to make a decision to stick it out and stick around and get some help, right? If you're suffering and you're not doing well and you just feel like there's no hope, there is hope. You have to be that. You have to provide that by allowing yourself to get help, because there is hope out there, and there's really good people out there that do care, but you have to open up. Most people, 99% of people won't open up to you. You have to open up to them first because they don't know what you're going through, right? Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And, I'll try to be back around next Monday night, and we'll see about maybe adding another show to the week. We'll see how that goes. I do want to do some more shit. I just need to get organized, right? So take good care, everybody, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.